Bart Station, that Bart property, the Ashby Bart property, it tells a story. They say the building tells stories. This one doesn't tell a story. It tells a story of people who travel a great distance seeking a better life, and who are relegated to instability and pain, following bondage. And they came to this area where they were cordoned off, not allowed to participate to the north, to the east. They built their own lives. Right here, right there. Shops, stores, cobblers, food, prosperity. They made history. And it's a story of what happens when a detested minority challenges the government, the system. This system strikes back. They took the legs off this edifice that the people had built. They called it redevelopment. They called it Bart. Did it in Oakland, did it in San Francisco, did it here. Decimated commercial zones where the people had built lives. Now, I'm here to tell you, and my colleagues are as well, that story did not end that day 40 years ago. The story is not over. Because if you look at that property, you can see the foundations of what was built. Living foundations. And we're right now going to come together and bring our ideas together and create a new edifice that leverages all of our powers, all of our past, all of our future, to create something beautiful, a beacon of inclusion and prosperity. So please, enjoy yourselves tonight and give us your ideas. We have no plans. We're going to do it right now with you and all of you. So thank you very much for coming and enjoy yourselves tonight.
Well, good evening. I'm your mayor, Jesse Edegin. I want to thank you all for coming this evening to be part of this community process to shape the future of the Ashby BART Station parking lot. And as we know, the BART Station is a cultural hub for South Berkeley, the home of the vibrant Berkeley Flea Market. And so any decisions around this property must be made in an inclusive way involving the city, BART, the flea market vendors, and neighbors. I want to clarify something that Councilman Bartlett said. There is no proposal currently to develop the Ashby BART parking lot. However, there is a strong desire on the part of city officials and BART officials to explore development in collaboration, particularly development of affordable housing. And the reason we're here tonight is to hear from you about your vision for the Ashby BART Station. What do you think should be developed? What should we build and who should we build for? How can we retain the flea market in South Berkeley? And what kinds of open space and retail should we create there as well? These are all important questions. We welcome your input on this evening. We know that history shows when top-down planning decisions have had disastrous effects on communities of color. One only needs to look across the bay to the redevelopment projects in the Fillmore District that wiped out affordable housing and displaced black residents and businesses. Or even in this neighborhood, when there was a proposal to build the BART tracks overground, which this community rose up and fought and succeeded in undergrounding those BART tracks. We cannot make the same mistakes. And the city of Berkeley is committed to an inclusive planning process to shape the future of not just the Ashby BART parking lot, but the future of the Adeline corridor. South Berkeley has a rich cultural history and is home to a diverse population and many small locally owned businesses. And as we discuss the future of South Berkeley as part of this Adeline corridor plan, we must ensure the preservation of the residents, the businesses, and the cultural identity of this neighborhood. As the mayor of Berkeley, I'm deeply concerned about the significant changes happening in our city and in South Berkeley. We know that rising rents and home prices are pushing out people of color and working families. The artists, the teachers, the students, the working families who make up the incredible fabric of our city are threatened due to a runaway housing market. And that's why it's important that we start the conversation tonight about building affordable housing on the Ashby Bart parking lot. As the housing crisis deepens, it's important that we explore potential development of publicly owned sites, such as city parking lots and BART property for affordable workforce housing. And as you know, the city is engaged with BART in a similar conversation about the development of the North Berkeley parking lot. I've already heard from community leaders that the top priority for any project at the Ashby station should be permanently affordable housing. And I completely agree and think that the priority must be affordable housing. With rising housing costs in South Berkeley and with widespread displacement, we need truly affordable housing so that we can keep people in this community. I've also heard a strong desire for maintaining the Berkeley flea market, for creating open space, for a community gathering space, and other social services. BART has set a goal in its transit-oriented development guidelines of 35%, I believe, affordable housing on BART property. We look forward to engaging with BART in this process. But I also want to let you know the City of Berkeley, in its general plan, which is the roadmap for planning in Berkeley, has set a goal of 50% affordable housing at this particular site. As we know, the city owns the air rights above the western Ashby Bart parking lot. And so any decision on future development of that site involves BART as well as city officials. BART is working with cities throughout the region in exploring the creation of housing on their property, with the goal of being part of the solution to the region's affordability crisis. And that's why I deeply appreciate BART Director Lateefah Simon, an incredible advocate for equity and for affordability, as well as BART staff being here to engage with us in this conversation on the future of the Ashby Bart parking lot. The city values the needs of its residents and small businesses and the flea market vendors in South Berkeley. And I want to make it clear to everyone tonight, I and Councilmember Bartlett are committed to keeping the Ashby flea market in South Berkeley and to further enhancing it. That must be a critical piece of this process. I also just want to be clear that no decision will be made tonight. This is a conversation. We're here to listen to you, to hear your ideas as we proceed with the Adeline Corridor process and conversations with BART. The Ashby Bart parking lot presents an incredible opportunity to create badly needed affordable housing, to create open space and a community hub for South Berkeley. And the City of Berkeley looks forward to working with BART and with you to shaping the future of this site. So thank you so much for coming this evening. I'll be taking very detailed notes, and we look forward to being in touch with you in the next steps of this process. And I'm now very honored to turn the microphone over to Lateefah Simon, BART Director.
Yes.
Me and Jesse were young folks and organizing in the Bay Area for years, so I can't believe he's the mayor of Berkeley. It's crazy.
What's so powerful actually about this room is what I know so clearly about my years doing work. Nothing happens when South Berkeley residents decides that it won't happen. And everything happens when Berkeley residents decides that it will happen. So I do believe that we will save this flea market. And I do believe that we will listen to the residents here who are very concerned about housing. My name is Lateefah Simon. I became a BART director almost 2 years ago, and I represent 19 cities in District 7. Ashby is one of the stations in my district, and it's an extremely important station for a number of reasons. I used to live on 66th Street. My husband, 4 years ago, died in that house. And as a transit-dependent person, as a legally blind person, when he died, we didn't have transportation, and so I sold his car, would walk every single day after he died to work, to the station. And when we were displaced out of the neighborhood, we moved to West Oakland and now I'm in Richmond. So understanding the complexities of the housing crisis, and also understanding that my father for 15 years sold incense at the Ashby Flea Market with no permit. He sat there and he made money to survive as a black man revolutionary in the Bay Area. And my role at BART is not only to hopefully be a voice for so many folks in our district, the 450,000 folks who are hanging on in this district, but also to articulate the vision that the institution of Bart has, coupled with the institution of community that's assembled here and throughout my district. So before I pass the mic to Tim, just a couple of things that I thought would be really important. And before I start, there are 2 Bart staff here. My eyes are not that good. So can you stand up, Bart staff? Let's stand up. And we're going to embarrass you. They are brilliant and amazing. Can you just introduce yourself pretty quickly?
Richard Fuentes, Government and Community Relations for Bart.
Abby Thorne-Lyman, Transit-Oriented Development Program Manager.
And Abby and Richard are not only amazing staff, they are in the community, they're on Bart every single day with me, we're all writers, and they're committed to being a part of this process with all of you all and seeing it through. Bart will do nothing without this community. We actually have to do what this community wants to make it a good project, whatever it's going to be, we're going to do it together. But so there's a couple things I just want to put out, and Abby and Richard really wanted for me to articulate some of the complexities that we're looking at alongside you all, who again have to live in this community, raise your children in this community, and we understand that. And Bart, as you know, it's not even a 50-year agency. We have done much good and we have done much harm. And so the work that we do moving forward is to do the least harm, and to work with community, especially in my district. I think that's extremely important. What we want to just put out there, a couple of things that Bart has prioritized. In the last 10 years, the Bay Area in this region has created 600,000 jobs and only 50,000 homes. Why we're feeling, especially renters, feeling the crux of this crisis, many of those 600,000 jobs pay more than our salaries right now. And the market that's not public, that's market. This market is really, really making living detrimental to many of us. So for those 50,000 homes, many of those homes have been unaffordable. So in other words, for every 11 jobs we added, the Bay Area has only built 1 housing unit. Just want to keep that as we lift up the conversation. And for this reason, Bart, even before I got elected, developed, and the Bart Board of Directors approved a TOD, what we call Transit-Oriented Development Plan, with some lofty goals. And I just want to talk about those very briefly. For this reason, building transit-oriented development on Bart property is critical for the next 20 years. What we know, because again, Bart operates in 110 miles. And in those 110 miles, not just the station, but the station is core, we want to build 20,000 homes in the next 20 years. We have the land to do that. So that's an important fact, again, for us to lift up. And with every station where we own land, Ashby is, again, center for that, especially for our disabled populations. As we know, the Rogers campus has been, for me and many other disabled folks, so key to our sustainability, to our mobility, to that human right to be in the Bay Area. And so Ashby, and we know that we're going to be talking about housing tonight. We know we're going to be talking about the flea market. I don't think that we need to have one conversation. I'm actually committed to a brilliant constituency that can walk and chew gum at the same time. We know that our people need housing. And while the Bart agency and our board together, including myself, has said, if we do build housing on our land, our floor will be 20% affordable housing. But I know the index. And as a single widowed mother of 2 children, low income is over $90,000. I know personally that I will fight for more than a 20% floor. We need to go as high as 100% and hopefully as low as 50%. The only way we'll get there is with community pressure. The only way we'll get there is with community pressure. And as we go through this process, hopefully it'll be a deep and long process together. Not that long, as King would say, but long and intense. Long means 3 months. Long means 6 months. Until we get to what we want to do together. That we won't make decisions tonight, but we'll hear from each other. I want to be a humble servant and really hear. The other thing that's important, there are 9 Bart Board of Directors, and I represent your station. We have a responsibility, and when we are not showing up, I appreciate there's about 7 of you all. I've seen 19 emails in the last 3 hours. continue and push us to do what is right for your communities. We can only make policy if that policy is driven by the gut and the strength of the folks who actually have to live with what we decide. So in short, I'm here, and I'm listening, and our staff are here, and they're listening. And I would also encourage you, and finally, to go to BART.gov. We have BART board meetings every 2 weeks. This is not on our agenda anytime soon, but it will be. You can follow the work. You can also individually email me, and we can continue to be in conversations. But I think this is one of many conversations we're going to be having together. So thank you for having me tonight. I really am honored to be here.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Timothy Burrows. I'm the director of the planning department at the city of Berkeley. And my staff and I are here tonight mainly to listen, and I really appreciate the leadership of Councilmember Bartlett and Mayor Ergin and BART Director Latifah Simon for organizing this meeting. I want to give a little bit of context for the Adeline Corridor planning process, which we're deep into now, we're in the midst of now, and how that planning process is relevant to the Ashby BART station. Mainly, I want to hear your input and your ideas and your concerns and your questions. We're going to document all those tonight, but I want to give you a little bit of context first on that planning process. So some people may wonder, why do we need yet another plan? You know, cities are sort of famous for creating plans, and so some people may wonder, why can't we just do stuff? Why do we need another plan? And the reason I think that a plan for this area, for the Adeline Corridor area, which Lisa's going to pull up just an image of that area. The reason that plan is so important is because market forces are happening in this area already, as you all know. The mayor mentioned it, Latifah mentioned it, Ben mentioned it, gentrification, displacement, our small business community operating on the margins, right? So the importance of a plan is it gives us an opportunity as a community to articulate a vision for what we want this area to be, a vision that's driven and articulated by you and others in the community, and identify very specific steps we can take to advance that vision and to affect those market forces. A plan can influence and affect a lot of the market forces that are driving some of the change that we don't want to see in Berkeley, in this part of Berkeley, and beyond in the region. A plan has to reflect our community values. And we've already heard a lot throughout the planning process about what many of those values are and what values the plan needs to reflect. I just want to talk through a couple of the things that have come through loud and clear in our conversation to date. One we've talked about already, advancing housing affordability and preventing displacement has to be reflected in the strategies in the plan. Economic opportunity, especially for our local community members and our small business community. Honoring and celebrating the rich history of South Berkeley as a cultural center for African Americans, not only in Berkeley, but for the region. Beautiful public spaces, designed not only for cars, but for people. And safe and sustainable transportation infrastructure. Those are a few of the clear priorities that we've heard loud and clear in the dozens and dozens of community meetings that we've had to date. And again, the plan has to reflect those priorities. There's a couple of tools, of main tools, that a plan like the Adeline Corridor Plan has to advance priorities like that. One of those tools is zoning. The rules that govern how and where certain uses could go, how and where development happens and construction happens within an area. That's the zoning code. And the plan will affect what zoning says about what can happen around the area of the Ashby BART parking lot. A plan can also identify rules and frameworks for ensuring that the benefits of development not only flow to developers, but also flow to other community members, especially those that are at most risk of displacement. And a plan can articulate design recommendations for the public right-of-way. Our plan, the Adeline Corridor Plan, your plan, will articulate all of those tools. There's a few things based on the input that I've heard to date, based on what I know are our priorities for our mayor and our city council. There's a few things that I'm very confident the plan will say. I think the mayor already mentioned a few of them.
One, the city is committed to finding a permanent home in South Berkeley for the flea market and partnering with the flea market to find that home. That's one thing that I think the city is committed to advancing progress on creation of an African American Holistic Resource Center, which is a process that started before the Adeline Corridor planning process was even set in motion. But I hope that we can leverage the plan to advance that work. And I know some of the leadership on that work is in the audience tonight. All right, that at hand. And the plan will also identify key principles and guidelines for development of affordable housing on the subject of tonight, the Ashby parking lot. The vast majority of the community members that we've heard from to date through the planning process have expressed support for affordable housing, a high level of affordable housing on that site. So the plan will say these things, not because I wanted to say these things, or my staff wants it to say these things, or even the mayor wants it to say these things. It'll say these things because that's what we've heard people tell us it should say, right? Our goal as staff is not to direct what the plan should say, it's to listen and to document and to make recommendations that we then get to review and provide input on. And we've heard a lot of input from a lot of different groups. Many of those groups are represented here tonight, and I really appreciate the dedication that people have come to community meetings with, volunteering hours and hours of time to review, provide input. I really want to thank Elisa Shin on my staff, our principal planner who's been leading the planning process. I wouldn't be surprised if every single one of you in the audience knows her already. She's everywhere, talking to groups all over town, especially in South Berkeley, about what this plan needs to say. So I really appreciate your work, Elisa. So a few of the main components that the plan will include. It'll include, like I said, a long-term vision with specific policies and programs. It'll include recommendations for proposed capital improvements, like changes in roadway design, public facilities, and public space. Like I said, it'll include zoning standards and guidelines, like building height and density and use, community benefits framework. And it'll include, importantly, an implementation strategy. Who's doing what by when, and how will it be funded? It needs to document what's going to happen and by when so that there's accountability and transparency in the planning process. So those are the main components of the plan itself that we're in the process of developing. And we're at an exciting moment in the planning process because we're about to get really specific about what this plan should say. So it's good that you're here tonight. We want you to stick with us over the next several months as we develop the first full draft of the plan by early next year, which you will get a chance to review and provide feedback on. And then we'll provide revised drafts based on your input, and we'll provide updates along the way. I want to acknowledge our Office of Economic Development team. Jordan Klein and Kieran Slaughter are here somewhere up there in the audience, doing really good work. Their whole focus is working with the small business community, including the flea market, vendors and leadership, to be a liaison, to help provide assistance and resources to help our small business community be as successful as it possibly can. They're really good at it, so I encourage you to connect with them this evening as well. Make sure you signed in when you came in so we can keep you up to speed on the next steps in the planning process. There's some handouts that give you some background on the planning process. And I think with that, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be with you tonight. Thank you for coming out tonight. I'm looking forward to hearing your input. And I'm going to turn it back over to Councilmember Bartlett. Thank you.
Here come the ground rules. If you know me, I don't do rules very well, but essentially, guys, let's be very polite. Let's we have 2 minutes per speaker. No cheering, no booing. Let's just get the ideas out there, record them. Maybe too many people for them to speak, so if it gets too crazy, we'll limit time a little bit. But we want everyone to give it all. So let's just be polite, respect different opinions, and please enjoy yourselves.
All right, can everybody hear me? All right. Hello? Oh, you have to speak right into it. Okay, so I'm going to hand the mic over to Monet, and if you have a comment or any ideas that you want to have heard, go ahead and line up over here. And Monet will hand you the mic, and we will listen.
And just for some thought starters, you can kind of can imagine. So, what principles or basic requirements would you like to see in this property? And what process would it look like to make these decisions as well?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kokavulu Lumakanda, and I am the acting president of the Berkeley Community Flea Market and Vendors Association. I'm so happy to be here tonight, and I'd like to say to you that some of my fears about this meeting have been somewhat allayed. But briefly, I'd like to state that there are some things that I believe are sacrosanct, and one of those things is the Berkeley Flea Market. We've been there for almost half a century now, and we have, I'm getting nervous, and we have established ourselves as an institution. So I'm very much encouraged by the overtures that we received from Councilmember Benny Bartlett, and also the overtures that we received from the mayor, Jesse Argine. Those overtures, I'd like to just briefly cite a few of them. And that was, number one was that to include us in any discussions regarding any potential housing projects at the Ashby Bart Station location. That's a good thing. The second point was an opportunity to revitalize the market. Yes, by all means, we certainly want to revitalize the market, and we want to bring it back to the luster of its former yesteryears. And a market, and the Berkeley Free Market, like any other market, is subject to stimulation. So the mayor and Councilmember Bartlett have extended to us some of those carrots and the promise of some of those stimulations. So for that, we are thankful. The other points in Councilmember Bartlett's communication to the members of the Berkeley Community Flea Market were to fully commit to giving preference to both. Well, that's a good start because at least we have them trying to speak out of both sides of their neck. So that's a good thing. And also, Councilmember Drosty's passed resolution, which was passed by the Berkeley City Council, neighborhood preferences in affordable housing to reduce the impacts of displacement. That's a very good place to start from. So we are grateful for all of these opening overtures. We know that this is just the beginning process, but we have proven the test of time, and we have fully established ourselves as a viable and continuing institution. And I also want to express my thanks to the Friends of Adeline and to all of the people who have helped to make our dream a continuing reality. Thank you all.
Good evening. My name is Michael Lee, and I am a member of the Vendors Association, Berkeley Community Flea Market. I want to start off, first of all, by thanking each and every one of you for turning out tonight. I'm sure there's better things you could be doing, like watching Gomer Pyle reruns on TV, but instead you decided to come out here and actually engage in this process and to help us preserve the characteristics of South Berkeley, which of course the Berkeley Flea Market has been an anchor of for almost 50 years now. To Councilmember Ben Bartlett, to Mayor Arreguín, thank you so very much for the emails that you sent us, reassuring us that your commitment to the Berkeley Flea Market. And you are correct, it is a cultural icon, and it does provide the main source of income for over 60 regular vendors each and every weekend. If you've not been to the market in a while, please come and visit us. The Vendors Association is committed to changing certain things. We want to hear your input on what those changes should be. Councilmember Bartlett and Mayor Arreguín, you have indicated support for the market. There are two things that you could do immediately to be able to help us rebuild the market and actually, make it the jewel it really is. The first thing that should happen is that the tourism board of the city of Berkeley should be marketing the hell out of it. Should be telling everybody about the market, and it should be a go-to destination. Just like the University of California campus or the marina, the Berkeley Flea Market should be on the list of things to do in the city of Berkeley. That's number one. And that could happen starting tomorrow morning. Number two, Office of Economic Development can start to tout the business opportunities at the Berkeley Flea Market. Okay, for $70 a week, you can start your own business and create the economic opportunities that we presently enjoy and the ability that we have to be able to put food on our table. And those are two things that they should be doing: tourism, economic development. And as we go through this process, we're hoping to be able to meet with each and every one of you, because we have other ideas about how we want to form a strategic partnership between all the people in this room, yourselves, the Bart Board of Directors, and the Vendors Association. I want to thank you so very much for your time and involvement in engaging us.
Yes. Good evening.
You talk really right up into the top.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Adama Mosley, and I am a vendor and a member of the Berkeley Flea Market Vendors Association. These guys, the first two people really put it out. We're all kind of in agreement with what they were saying, what Lou Maconda said and what Mike just got to saying. And we just want to remind you of all the cultural energy and entities that does represent the Berkeley Flea Market. I don't think there's anyone other like it in the world. It's really an international market where there's lots of people come with their international information, vibes, different things they want to sell or trade. And also it's a nice getaway point, because I noticed a lot of people, when they want to leave the Bay Area, they come, they bring all this stuff and sell it very, very cheap, and you can get a lot of good stuff that way. Because they're on their way to Hawaii or somewhere, and they got to leave the stuff behind. So they leave it for the ones who are looking for collectibles. So do come out and look. Also, when people visit the Bay Area, they actually already make it a point to come over. A lot of times I talk to people who come. I know one lady, she said every time she comes from Boston to see her son, she has to come to the market. She said she couldn't imagine it ever closing, so we don't want to disappoint her, nobody. So we want to thank everybody for coming out and being interested in this whole situation. Also, the mayor and the city council members and the people from South Berkeley, because without them, we wouldn't have this platform as good as it is right now. So we want to thank everybody, and please support us.
Good evening. My name is Karis. Thank you for this inclusive process. I'm a I rent right near Ashby, Bart, and less than a block away, and my kids have the good fortune to be able to walk to the fantastic Berkeley schools, including this one. And I take Bart every day as a commuter, and on Monday evening, I took Bart in the evening for recreation to go to a lecture on the key system that no longer exists in Berkeley, but they showed a whole bunch of photos, and some of the photos were of the rolling hills of Berkeley with an occasional stately mansion and none of these bungalows that we see here. And it just reminded me of the investment that our elders have put into building the community that we have. We don't have the key system anymore. We do have Bart. We do have lots more housing than was before. We need more. And change can be hard. It can be difficult for people to give up the look and feel of the neighborhood that they are used to, but we owe it to the generations that are coming next to continue building our city to reflect the values that we have and to provide housing. And a number of my neighbors in that neighborhood are homeless, and people like me have a very difficult time renting. And so I applaud all the efforts to build housing of all sorts. And I think if I wanted to add housing in the Bay Area, this is a fantastic place to do it. You can walk to everything. We have fantastic jobs, shopping, schools, resources, transportation of all sorts. And so I support all of these efforts, and I just, again, think back to how Berkeley has changed over the years, and overall, I think for the better, so thank you.
Good evening to everyone. My name is Mansour Dean. I live in Berkeley. I live on Sacramento Street in South Berkeley. I've been in Berkeley since 1979. Several years ago, the former Mayor Bates and Max Anderson, Councilman Max Anderson, came together to put a group together to look at the feasibility of building Transit Village at the BART station at Ashby. I was on the task force, and I'm here today. I think we're starting from a very good place. We have the officials at the front stating that providing a commitment to